Cliched YouTuber walk-on opening. And now I will reach for the camera to transition, even though there are no controls on my camera. And now I'm going to start talking while I transition to this camera. Alright, I think that should have been just about enough to piss off Eric Brock. Hi everybody, Tim here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk a little bit about drums. More specifically, virtual drums. Now everybody has said for ages that virtual drums, any kind of drum loops, drum samples, drum machines, drums you play with a keyboard, are not real drums. I am here to tell you exactly the opposite. Virtual drums are real drums.
Tim, have you lost your freaking mind? Virtual drums are not real drums. Any idiot knows that.
So yeah, virtual drums are not exactly real drums. They are recordings of somebody else playing drums, if we're talking about acoustic sounding drums. They are not a live drummer in your room playing drums through your equipment. It's just a recording of somebody else. But when you're using them in your recordings, you don't have a big room that you can set up a drum kit or a drummer or microphones or a great audio interface or a great mixing setup or yada, 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 all the stuff that you need to get a great drum recording. You've just got the free virtual instrument that you downloaded off the internet and you want to make a song. That's fine. We all do it. It's easy to do. But there are some ways that you can take those virtual drums and make them feel a little more realistic, or at the very least, treat them like real drums so that they're going to sit better in your recording and give you a better feel for your song. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so here we are inside Reaper, as always, because that's what I love to use. You use whatever DAW works for you, man. But one of the free drum kits you can get online that a lot of people love, and I certainly love it too, is the Steven Slate Drums version 5.5. There's a free version for Windows and Mac. Today I'm on my Mac, so let's take a look at that one. Now, one thing you're going to want to do, and this is going to create some extra work for you come mixing time, but it's also going to give you a lot of options. You want to, instead of just adding a track and then adding your instrument as you would normally, like I would normally come over here and I would double click and insert a track. I'm going to arm it to record, and I'm going to change my input to my MIDI keyboard, and then I'm going to go into my effects and I'm going to find Steven Slate Drums. I'm going to load it up and wait for it to open. I'm going to come in and load up the kit, and I'm ready to go. And just tap along whatever you want to do and drag in some loops or whatever you want to use to create your drum line. There's another way you can do this, though, that's going to give you some options down the road. It's going to make your project a little more complicated looking. You're going to have a lot more tracks, but it's going to get you to where you want to be in the end, I think, a whole lot better. So let's delete all this stuff. Just completely remove the track. So we come over here into the track pane and we're going to right click and we're going to insert the virtual instrument on a new track. We'll come in here, switch to my VSTIs and find Steven Slate. And it's going to ask us if we want to build the routing for this virtual instrument. This instrument has the capability of outputting each instrument in the drum set, your snare, your kick, your hi-hats, the ride cymbal, the overhead microphones that they emulate in the plugin, all of that can be routed out to its own individual track. So yes, we want to do that. Now it's going to make this look very confusing. And you can see down here, wow, have we got a lot of tracks going on now. Let's go ahead and load up our drum set. I'm just going to use the free Hugo set that comes with the free version of Steven Slate drums. And we'll test and see if we get some audio. There we go. Let's just close this window for now so we can see what's going on here. Now I'm playing, and all I'm seeing is that very first input lighting up, output 1. What we've got to do is go into the plugin itself. And we've got to go here to mix, where we can see the mixer inside the plugin. Now here is where a lot of people would just go ahead and do all their mixing. They'll set the levels for each of the drums. They'll set the levels for the overhead mics. They'll turn on compression, reverb, whatever else that the plugin offers you to affect your sound. But we're not actually going to use any of that today. What we're going to do is down here at the bottom, see how everything says out 1? We're going to change those. The kick in and kick out, we're going to leave on 1. The snare direct, the snare top, the snare bottom, the snare ring, all of these we're going to change to number 2. So that our snare is now going to be on its own channel by itself. And we're going to do that again for the toms. We'll put that on 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. I'm going to speed up the rest of this part. I'm basically just going to change the output for each channel in the mixer so that it'll then send to a different channel in the DAW. All right, so now I've got this routing built. For now, I'm going to go ahead and close this window so that I can see the rest of my mixer pretty easily. Since I've got everything routed up to 12, 13 through, what did it build, like 32? Those tracks I do not need. I'm going to go ahead and just select all of those, and I'm going to remove them. So now we've just got our 12. Now, another thing I'm going to do that's going to save me a whole lot of time down the road, and I'll speed this up for the video, we're going to rename the tracks so that everything is named what it actually is. Output 1, output 2, that's all. Just, that doesn't mean anything to us, does it? Okay, so now that I've got all that built, now if I play things, they should start showing up, as you can see, on the individual tracks. Let me move my camera itself here out of the way, drag me up so you can see the other channels lighting up. Okay, so now we've got our routing built. How does that help us? Well, it doesn't really do a whole lot for us yet, but stay with me. Now we're going to record a part. And you can do this a couple of different ways. You can go ahead and record it live with your keyboard input, or you can insert a MIDI item on the track and just open up your piano roll editor and go in and start just manually clicking with your mouse and dragging in notes. So for right now, we're going to just insert a new MIDI item on this track, and let's drag it out. Nope. Let's just do a bar. We'll just do a bar. And come into the MIDI editor, and we will find our bass drum down here on C, and we'll just put a kick there, and then on 2 we'll put a snare, and then we're going to put a 2 and then a 4. And where's our hi-hats? Yeah, right there on this one. And we're just going to do some 8th notes on the hi-hat. And you can see as I'm drawing all of these in, it's pretty much maxing the velocity. everything's at the top in the red. And that's going to sound like this. And that is the very definition of a very static, lifeless drum machine sound. So what can we do with that? Well, for starters, we can unclick, having everything right on to snapping right to the grid. Let's zoom in here on these. And you can see as I was drawing in them, some of them aren't 100% on. But let's move those around a little bit more even. Let's take some of the snares. We'll have that a little up here. Actually, some of those aren't looking too bad as far as placement. I just want things to have a little bit of a human feel. They're not exactly on the lines here, as you can see. Like this one here on beat 3. The hi-hat's a little bit after. The bass drum's a little bit after. Let's kind of put that one maybe a little bit before, because there's going to be places where when a real drummer is playing those things, they're not going to always have their hands and feet in exactly the same place. They're not going to be so far off the beat that it sounds like they don't know how to play, but it's going to have a little bit more of a human feel to it. So let's take that. But the other big thing we can do is we can start dragging these velocities down. Let's drag a lot of them way down. Because think about when a drummer is playing something really fast. When they're playing something quickly, they are definitely not going to be hitting those things as hard as they possibly can. It's not going to be anywhere near the top of the velocity scale. Oops, missed one over here. Bring those down. And I'm just going to do that all the way back to the beginning of my bar. And it doesn't matter if these things are even. In fact, you don't want them to be even. You want them to have some variation. And maybe we'll leave like that first bass drum. We'll leave that pretty high, but we'll drag down the hi-hat. Let's make sure that's the one I got clicked. And we'll drive that down. So maybe he's starting real hard on that first beat, and then he just kind of lays back on the rest of them. But even then, it's not going to be at the top of the scale. Okay, and now that we've made all of those changes, it's going to sound like this. Already starting to work a little bit better, isn't it? I mean, it's a very static beat. We're not going through and doing a full arrangement or anything here. But this is going to sound a lot more natural. Now, let's take a look at some ways that we can liven this up even more. And what I mean by virtual drums being real drums. Okay, so something you want to do after you've got your MIDI part down and you've got your drum performance edited the way that you want it to sound. Now you're going to mix it as though it were a live kit that you had actually recorded. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to commit everything to audio. You're not going to want to keep the MIDI. You want to commit it to the audio. And here's how we do that. Now that I have got the MIDI part the way I want it, I'm going to come in here, select these tracks. Let's just select all of them. And I want to render the tracks to mono stem tracks and mute the originals. Now, I've got double the number of tracks. I don't need all that extra stuff. So we're going to go through and we're going to, everything that doesn't say stem on it, we're just going to get rid of it. I'm just going to remove those tracks. Now we go back up here. And now I don't need my virtual instrument anymore. You can get rid of it. You can keep it if you want. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it because now at this point, we want to treat it as though we've got live tracks that were recorded by a real drummer handed to us, and this is the performance. It's not going to be edited anymore, except by what we do through the rest of the mixing process. And now what we've got sounds like this. And that's just one bar. Let's shrink that down so it looks a little more reasonable. And really at this point, all we've got is kick, snare, and hi-hats. We're not really worrying about the toms. For the purposes of the rest of this video, I'm going to go ahead and delete all that other stuff too. Okay, now I've got my tracks condensed down to just what we're using for this particular mix. Obviously, if I was doing a full song mix, there's going to be toms in there. There's going to be crash cymbals, ride cymbal, everything else in the kit. Right now for this, we're just going to worry about the kick, the hi-hat, the snare, and the room mics. Now what we can do is we can insert a track. Drag that up here to the top. I'm going to select everything else that I've got below. And one thing Reaper lets you do that's real nice is I drag these things in and I can group all of those tracks together and make a drum bus. This will become a lot more important down the road. But now you've got options that you can treat the individual instruments with a compressor, with a reverb, with some EQ. You can put a phaser or a flanger on it. That's something they used to do in the 70s a lot and got some really neat sounds out of that. But now I can go in with, say, my kick drum, and I can put on a nice compressor. Let's just go ahead and play it. And with the compressor, I'll go ahead and let's bring the ratio up about 4, and then we'll bring the threshold down so it starts engaging. Turn on my makeup gain. And you can hear already that bass drum starts really thumping a lot more. It's kind of jumping out from the rest of the track, so let's go ahead and do something with the snare too. Put a little compressor on there. Do the same kind of thing. Maybe let's go a little lighter on the snare, and then we'll bring that down to where it's kind of engaging. Turn on the makeup. You can see we're going to start getting some clipping. You're going to want to really watch your makeup gain. You're going to watch your thresholds. You're going to want to kind of, massage these things in to where they're not clipping and causing all kinds of problems with your audio, but to where they start having a nice snap to them. Listen to the snare just on its own. Let's just solo the snare. And that's with the compressor. Now if I turn the compressor back off, see, we get a lot more crispness out of that snare with the compressor on it. And then let's come up to the drum bus. And let's add a reverb. I really like the Phoenix Verb that I got with the Isotope bundle a while back. That's really overkill right now. So let's turn that down. Here, with and without. Without. With. Automatically starts giving you some life. Now, I know that a lot of drum plugins are going to have these kind of features in their mixer setting within the plugin. So you're thinking, why do I need to do all of this, Tim? Because you're treating the virtual drums like they're real drums. And you're going to go through all of these steps if you had a full drum mix to work with. And then you've also got the options to add things that aren't included in that plugin. Routing other effects into the plugin and making them respond exactly the way you want to, probably not the easiest thing in the world. But if you break all of those things out onto their own individual tracks, then you've got all the options in the world. So I'm saying treat your virtual drums like they are real drums. Are virtual drums real drums? No, not really. But if you treat them like that, then you're going to have a lot more options when you get to the final mix of your track. You're going to have a lot more life. You're going to have a lot more oomph. You're going to have that power and feel that you're looking for, even though you don't have the money to get a real drummer in a real room. All right, everybody, that is it for today. If you've gotten some value out of this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's stuff you'd like me to talk about in future videos. And as always, you can also follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. And please visit my website, timothy-e-brown.com. Look for my songs on Spotify. I've got one out right now. More will be coming. And I will see you guys next time.